When Lara traveled to Key West, Florida, all she wanted was a quiet weekend away from the stress of work. She had heard about the infamous Robert doll displayed in a local museum, but never really cared, thought it was just another tourist gimmick. On her second day, while wandering the historic district, she saw a sign for the Fort East Martello Museum and decided to check it out. Until then, it felt like just another typical tourist stop. The museum was stuffy and silent. She wandered the halls, looking at old artifacts, when she found a room with a glass case in the center surrounded by a small crowd. As she got closer, she saw Robert, the infamous cursed doll. He was smaller than she imagined, dressed in a sailor suit with button eyes that seemed to follow every move. A sign said photos required permission from the doll, something she thought was ridiculous at the time. Without hesitation, she took out her phone and snapped a picture, ignoring the permission rule. Right after the photo, Lara felt a strange uneasiness, like the air had thickened in the room. She nervously laughed it off and put her phone away, thinking it was all in her head. But minutes later, things started to go wrong. First, her phone's camera app froze and restarted on its own. When it turned back on, the photo of Robert was distorted, as if the image had been scratched or pulled digitally. She tried deleting it, but her phone crashed every time she tried to open that specific image. That afternoon, on her way back to the hotel, Lara noticed a sharp headache that quickly worsened. When she arrived at her room, she realized the door was slightly ajar, even though she was sure she had locked it. The lights flickered as she entered, and the TV, which had been off, suddenly turned on to a static channel. She turned everything off and tried to rest. She lay down and closed her eyes but swore she heard soft footsteps inside the room, even though she was completely alone. When she opened her eyes, the room was silent again, but something told her she wasn't alone. She went to the bathroom to splash water on her face, trying to calm down, and while looking in the mirror, she heard a sudden noise from outside, like something dropping to the floor. She left cautiously and saw her suitcase, which had been closed on a stand, now on the floor, open. Strangest of all, the clothes she wore to the museum were folded neatly on the bed, as if someone wanted to get her attention. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Every little sound kept her on edge, and she felt watched constantly. Around 3 a.m., she heard soft knocks at the door, 3 spaced taps. Looking through the peephole, she saw no one. Shaking, she got back in bed and spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling wide awake. The next day, she decided to return to the museum, thinking maybe it was all a bizarre coincidence and she needed to understand what was going on. She wanted to ask about the curse. The next day at the museum, she found an employee and awkwardly asked if others had gotten sick after visiting the doll. The staff member, unfazed, asked, "You took a photo without permission, right?" Lara nodded, and he just shook his head like he'd heard it 1,000 times before. He said that every so often, they get letters from people apologizing to Robert, describing accidents, losses, even deaths after their visits. He even showed her a box full of letters and printed emails, all addressed to Robert. People from all over the world begging for forgiveness, saying they didn't believe and now regretted it. Some letters were intense, describing family tragedies, job losses, illnesses, car crashes. It shook Lara in a weird way. Her belief that it was all superstition started to crumble. The employee suggested she talk to the doll, apologize, and if she wanted, leave a letter too. Nervously, she agreed to do it. Back in the display room, the place felt colder than before. Just looking into Robert's eyes gave her chills. She stepped close, placed her hand on the glass, and quietly apologized. She said she hadn't believed before, didn't mean to disrespect, and just wanted things to go back to normal. She thanked him for nothing worse happening and left with a strange feeling, like she'd done something important. Somehow, the room felt lighter when she walked away. In the following days, Lara had no more problems. Her phone worked normally, the headache went away, and the hotel felt calmer. She even slept well the last 2 nights of her trip. When she got home, she deleted the doll photo for good. But when she opened her gallery, the image was gone. She searched everywhere, folders, cloud backups, nothing. Like it had never been taken. That only made the whole experience stranger. She never told anyone until years later, on forums like this. Even when things seemed normal, Lara couldn't forget what happened. Sometimes she'd wake up at night feeling someone standing in the corner. She never saw anything, but the fear was real. For a long time, she avoided museums, old objects, or anything that felt heavy. What bothered her most was having no proof. Everything could be explained logically, but the whole sequence was too strange to be coincidence. Later, living in another city and in a new phase of life, she told a close friend what happened. The friend, skeptical, laughed and searched the internet for Robert. Found it all very sensational and showed videos and photos, thinking it would help cure Lara's trauma. But when she tried to open one video, her phone froze. The video stopped on an image of the doll staring at the camera, and the audio emitted unbearable static. That was enough for Lara to leave the room and ask never to talk about it again. Since then, Lara avoided anything related to Robert. Even years later, she changed channels when documentaries mentioned the doll and refused to discuss it with anyone. The strangest part, sometimes she'd get notifications of old photos being automatically restored by the cloud. In some, corrupted files with dates from her Key West trip appeared. She never dared to open them, just deleted and pretended not to see. Today, she faces it with some resignation. She doesn't know if it was suggestion, coincidence, or something unexplained. But the experience left its mark. And no matter how much she tries to rationalize, something about that memory still haunts her. Maybe it was the doll's eyes, which seemed alive. Or that from that day, she started believing some things really have no explanation. Deep down, she knew she was lucky to have come out of it with only fear. Because, from what she read later, not everyone had the same ending. What struck Lara the most was how something so small could carry such a heavy energy. It wasn't just the doll's appearance or being locked behind glass, it was what it represented. A symbol of something we don't understand but seems to be there, lurking. She started thinking twice before messing with certain things. Never underestimated warnings or stories she used to call nonsense. Maybe that was the biggest impact, the silent, permanent change in how she saw the world. To this day, Lara doesn't know if what happened was a curse, coincidence, or pure suggestion. But something inside her changed. The feeling of being watched, followed, disturbed by something invisible never fully disappeared. Sometimes she still wakes in the middle of the night with a racing heart for no reason. And when someone asks about memorable trips, she never mentions Key West. Because deep down, she knows some doors, once opened, never completely close. And it all started with a simple photo, taken without permission.